think we're ready to get started. Thank you all for being patient. My name is Gina Spitzer, and I'm a relationship manager for Oyster Consulting. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you here on behalf of Hirschler Fleischer and Oyster Consulting to our event, our seminar, our webinar. We have some folks who are joining us via webinar today, as well as some folks in the room. And we welcome you to our event today. We are going to spend time about the next 2 hours or so. We'll have a change of characters here as we go. We're going to spend some time talking about first the business considerations that you might have for moving to an independent RIA. We will then switch gears and talk a little bit about the technology platform. We have a number of folks with us, a number of my colleagues, as well as some experts in the industry. So a panel of folks who will be going through some things there. We'll also spend some time talking about the legal and compliance considerations as you think about doing this. And then finally, we'll actually take a little bit of a break, very short break, and we'll have a couple of current RIA folks join us and talk about their experience and kind of how it was for them and what to expect and maybe some surprises along the way or not, but we'll have some of that happening. With each of the sections, we will allow for some Q&A at the end of each section. We'll also have some time at the end for some questions. If you're in the room, certainly just raise your hand and we'll call on you to ask those questions. If you're joining us via webinar, please go to the chat section of, and if you can go to the next slide, please. So on your page up at the top, there's a chat feature. If you go to that section and just choose everyone and type your question in there, we'll see that on our end and we'll make sure that we ask it of the various panels so that they can answer those questions for you. And like I said, we'll probably have a little bit of time at the end as well to answer some of those questions. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. First up will be Buddy Doyle, who is the CEO and one of the founding principals of Oyster Consulting. And he will talk with us a little bit about business considerations. So, take it away, Buddy.
Well, thank you, Gina. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your time. We'll try to make valuable use of this. So I started Oyster Consulting with a couple of colleagues in October 2008. And I can tell you being an entrepreneur is one of the most intellectually stimulating, frustrating, exciting, scary, and rewarding things that you can ever do. And so as you go through this decision process about whether or not you would want to start your own RIA, whether or not you want to take that journey, to me that's a big component, is am I ready to run a business? And can I pull this off? Now some of you are already entrepreneurs. Some of you are independent reps with broker-dealers, and that's not really what we're talking about here today when we talk about going independent and starting your own RIA. But you're already down the path of running a business. You have HR considerations, human resources considerations that you have to take into account. And speaking of account, you have accounting that you have to do. And you have tax support that you probably bring in and legal support that you probably have brought in. You've negotiated leases. You have technology that can be very frustrating at times to deal with. But you're already doing all those kinds of things as an independent rep. But for others of you, this would be a new adventure for you. And so I would encourage you, if you're thinking about this, to talk to other people that have started businesses and have run businesses, whether they're RIAs or not, to get a feel for what that's like. You can learn a lot from people regardless of what industry they're in. But we're also fortunate to have a lot of experts, and you'll have a lot of experts around you to give you their experience and their advice, which are often two different things. And as I know, having gone through this at Oyster. So I think that's one piece. Now, I kind of said, I sort of dismissed the independent rep firms, which you really can't do. because there is a key consideration, a key question that you have to ask yourself when you start an RIA, which is, do I still want to be affiliated with a broker-dealer? And independent rep firms in the past have been sort of the leaders in supporting what's called a hybrid RIA. And a hybrid RIA is where you're affiliated with one broker-dealer, but you either have your own RIA or you're affiliated with a different RIA where there's no overlapping ownership. Right? So the ownership of the RIA is yours, generally speaking, or your team's, your group that got together, and the broker-dealer approves that as an outside business activity, but you can continue to get your annuity trail business. You can sell products that you would typically do through a broker-dealer, and so they'll continue to be part of that. And like any other firm, though, they're going to subject you to their controls. And so when I think about independent reps and the kind of hoops they make you go through and things like that, I kind of use an adjustable wrench is the way I look at the different firms. Some open up a half an inch, some of them open up an inch, some of them an inch and a quarter. You know, they all have varying degrees of what they allow you to do while you're under their control. And that's all great unless you need 2 inches. And then it's a really kind of a big burden for you. But I think as you're starting down this path, particularly if you're an independent rep, you ought to explore whether your firm is already hybrid friendly is kind of the term that they use. And that market is evolving. If you look at the press lately, what FINRA expects of those firms sounds like it's changing. Now, things often sound like they're changing when they're not, but it does seem like we're moving in a direction that is becoming more accepting of what we're seeing out in the marketplace. So a couple of key considerations. One, do you want to own a business? That can be a tough thing to do, but again, can be very rewarding. 2, do you want to continue with a BD affiliation or not? I think the third reason that I generally find that you don't want to start your own RIA is if you're in the corner office at a wirehouse and you've been a successful rep or investment advisor, financial advisor, investment consulting, whatever the term is that they use to describe you where you are, you're probably pretty comfortable. Life's pretty good, right? You come into the office every day, you sit down, you log on to a computer, you look at the market, you might do some transactions, and you go home and everything's kind of taken care of. I mean, you know, they nitpick you a little bit. And, you know, every year they make you take this really awful, boring training about AML and things like that, where you go through this test and you probably still wouldn't know money laundering if it was going on because criminals are pretty smart. But I do think the professional criminals are pretty smart. Some of them are not. But I think that as you look at that, right, life's pretty good, and you may not want to make that change. Inertia is a very powerful force, and I think for good reason sometimes. But that said, there are things that being your own RIA can be pretty good. One, you can make a pretty nifty profit with an RIA. Your payout can go up. What you take home can go up, and often does. I mean, we see it quite a bit, depending especially on how you come through this. You can also be building a valuable company while you're at it. The company you build and the assets that you collect, they have great value. And if you look at the press and you look at what's going on, there's a lot of merger and acquisition activity in the RIA space today. And people who started RIAs in 2000 and 2005 and 2008, 2009, some of them are selling, right? They grab the brass ring if that's your goal, to build a business and sell it. And we're going to kind of talk through some of that today, and that whole life cycle. And, you know, it's not that you're guaranteed to be successful. The vast majority of clients that we've worked with who started their own registered investment advisor, they're running their own registered investment advisor, are successful, but not all of them. We've had some sort of Lucy with the football moments with clients where they built an RIA on spec, hoping to recruit in advisors and attract others. And we went through registration processes and then said, wow, recruiting maybe takes a little longer than I wanted. And so they kept their old job. We've had some clients who are really, really smart people who have started RIAs, but with a very narrow focus of investments. Option strategies don't have a big, broad mass appeal. And in the RIA world, that's a little unusual to have something like that. Or a single asset class. You're very focused on just having a single asset class. Distressed debt, right? If you're running just distressed debt portfolios, if you're not the hot dot on the performance chart, if you underperform for a while, you're not going to stick around for very long. Maybe. You might be able to grind it out, and we've had people go through those cycles. But what we have found is that wealth managers, if you will, people who come out of an independent rep firm, a wirehouse, a regional firm, with a pretty good base of clients, and they're doing stocks and bonds and ETFs and funds and by and large, it really works out. And so for me, you've got to take a look at all of that kind of stuff. So part of it is you're building value, right? And sort of in business school, when I went through it, that was sort of the idea of running the company, is building value. Another component of this is the regulatory scheme for RIAs is a lot simpler than broker-dealers. And I mentioned that, and I've heard some people, sort of skeptics, say, oh, they're running from regulation. I've never heard a client say that to me. And I assume if they were running from regulation, they probably wouldn't be talking to me in particular, because I do a lot of regulatory and compliance stuff. And so typically they're coming to me because they want to run a clean business. Or they're in some wrestling with regulators maybe about something. But I think that really they're fleeing controls that don't really work for them, right? Again, the big firms, if you have 1,000 people or 10,000 people, you're trying to control 10,000 people. You kind of put a tighter rein on things than when you have 10. So you get to kind of decide how you're going to comply with the rules and regulations. And you have a lot of flexibility in how you go about that. So it's a much simpler regulatory scheme, but it's still there. You get to decide how you want to construct your portfolios. How do you want to put this together? Now, you can have lots of support for constructing your portfolios, but it's your decision. You get to decide what asset classes and how you put them together. You get to make your own decisions. Usually when you're affiliated with a bigger company, they would like to have a big influence on how that goes, and your risk tolerance has to match their risk tolerance. You get to advertise performance. And there's a lot of rules about advertising performance and what you can and can't say. But if you work for somebody else's firm, it's their performance. You're just an agent for them. You're a representative of that company. And so not that they won't advertise your performance and work with you, but it's their performance. It's not yours. So if you want to go down that path, you have options to do that. I think another key component is demographics are pretty good for starting your own RIA. If you look at the demographics, and there's two demographics, right? There's the competition, what do advisors look like, and then there's the population that they serve. Right? So in 2011, baby boomers started turning 65. And a lot of people are retiring, and they want advice when they retire. And they might want advice from different people, but they've got, 401k plans and things that they're going to need some help with and some support on. And their plans are changing from wealth accumulation to having an income based off of their savings. The advisor population is also changing. There are more investment advisors over 70 than under 30. And I've seen some reports that somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40% of advisors are going to retire in the next 10 years. That's a lot of competition getting out of the way. We'll see, right? past performance isn't indicative of future results and all that other compliance type stuff. So we'll see when it happens, but that's the prediction. And the other thing is there is lots of support for you when you start this. Thousands and thousands of other people have done this. And there's been an entire support infrastructure that's been built around supporting people who start RIAs. Small RIAs have as much access to the cool technology platforms as the large firms, and maybe even more choice. CRM, customer relationship management platforms, performance reporting platforms, trading platforms. You get to select from a lot of different vendors, and it's really kind of putting it together for yourself is really cool. And you hear about millennials wanting a digital experience. You can deliver that digital experience. It's actually pretty darn easy. But they also want advice. They actually do want advice from professionals when they want it. So we're fortunate here to have platform providers. I kind of call you guys platform providers because it's more than custodians and service providers. You guys really do help construct platforms. So we've got, I'll just kind of go Pershing, CUNA, Schwab, and TD kind of all together. Nobody here is given a sales pitch. We just want you to have the information you need to decide, do you want to go down this path? Do you not want to go down this path? We've got regulatory and legal folks here to help talk to you. And again, we've got a couple of advisors who've already gone down this path to talk to you. So again, what I'd like for you to do during this time is sort of say, where do I want to be? What is the objective of becoming a registered investment advisor? Right? What would I hope for? Where am I today? And what journey do I need to take to become a successful RIA? And do I want to do it or not? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Terry Schaefer, who's going to moderate the panel. And again, thank you so much for your time and being here. We're excited to help you through that.